Gurmagat Ceann Corla. Taoiseach, we have an epidemic in domestic violence. This morning, Women's Aid reports that last year it received its highest level of domestic abuse disclosures in its 50-year history. The figures cited in the organisation's impact report are frightening. More than 40,000 disclosures of abuse against women and children in 2023. That's a jump of 18% on the previous year. Reports of physical abuse increased by 74% and economic abuse increased by 87%. Emotional and sexual abuse and the scourge of coercive control are the lived experience of far too many women. The report details the horrific violence that women experience at the hands of partners or ex-partners, attacks with weapons, sexual assaults, threats against their life and the lives of children, persistent surveillance, the control of household and family finances. And the consequences for women and children can be catastrophic. Mental health crisis, exhaustion and burnout, poverty, homelessness and even miscarriage. The awful reality of women being beaten up, sexually assaulted, physically, mentally, emotionally manipulated and coercively controlled happens behind closed doors. It happens in the place where a woman should be safest, in their home. 266 women have died violently in Ireland since 1996. The majority were killed in their own home, and of the resolved cases, half were killed by someone they knew. Behind every statistic is a real person, a real life. Domestic violence isn't that far from any of us. It can be family, friends, a neighbour, a work colleague. It can be somebody close to you who is perhaps so overwhelmed by fear that they can't speak up. The findings of the Women's Aid report demand that government respond with a level of urgency, pace and ambition to match the scale of the crisis that we face. The third national strategy on domestic, sexual and gender-based violence must be fully resourced, Taoiseach. The Ombudsman for Children must be granted funding to participate in that strategy. The establishment of the dedicated agency on domestic violence is very welcome, but it must be made fit for purpose and have the autonomy to address the crisis effectively. Taoiseach, we need an all-of-society approach to combating domestic violence. We need positive societal change at every level. As an immediate step, government must now solve the deficit in the provision of shelters. The state has failed to meet its refuge provision obligations under the Istanbul Convention. 9 counties still have no shelter, meaning that women and children desperately seeking escape end up staying in or returning to violent and abusive homes. Domestic abuse service providers have been underfunded for decades. So, Taoiseach, now is the time that strategy and investment must turn the tide to ensure that women and children fleeing domestic violence have access to refuge and to the wraparound supports that they need. Lagan Thurscall Women's Aid on Maid Fureg and Chowley a Tá Ann. Ní mór den rialtas gníomhartha a thuairt chun cinn chun aig a thuairt arsa go pránach. Taoiseach, do you accept that the findings of the Women's Aid report highlight the need to ramp up government's response to domestic violence? And will you bring forward an emergency action plan to deliver shelters in those 9 counties where currently there are none?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
I want to thank Deputy McDonald for raising this extraordinarily important issue. Before I answer directly, can I just acknowledge the fact that Minister Eamon Ryan has made the decision to step down as the leader of the Green Party. Obviously, he's played a major leadership role in this coalition. I want to acknowledge that. He's an honest, sincere, dedicated and decent politician. He's a person of substance, a person who's had a positive impact on Irish politics, and I fully respect and understand his reasons. I just want to wish him well. Can I thank Deputy McDonald for raising this extraordinarily important issue? And the answer to your direct question is yes. Yes, we absolutely want to continue to do more in this area. And Minister McEntee is leading a very significant whole of government, and I hope and believe a whole of society response that you rightly call for in relation to this, because the Women's Aid report does make for stark reading. The findings of the report are, quite frankly, appalling, and there is no place in Irish society for violence against women, or indeed for violence against anyone, for that matter. And I do want to reassure anyone who's a victim or at risk of domestic or sexual abuse that help does continue to be available. I urge anyone who's in fear or danger due to domestic abuse or any crime to please contact Gardaí as soon as you can do so safely. And yes, and I'll get into the specific issues of yes, there are challenges, and yes, there's a need to do more. But I never, ever, ever want to accidentally even put out a message that people can't seek help in the here and now, right now. Because if you're in danger right now, I know all of us in this House would urge you to seek the support of the Gardaí and others as soon as you can do so safely. We have taken a number of steps aimed at protecting women against such abuse. And I think we have shown that combating all forms of domestic, sexual and gender-based violence is a priority. And this has been reflected in a whole range of actions. For example, we now saw the establishment earlier this year by Minister McEntee of CUAN, our statutory-based domestic, sexual and gender-based violence agency. This is now tasked with coordinating and driving the full implementation of our zero tolerance strategy on domestic, sexual and gender-based violence. The 2024 plan for the strategy has a number of very specific action. It commits to exploring models for the delivery of domestic violence refuge accommodation and identifying opportunities to accelerate delivery to meet this target. So I want to absolutely assure the Deputy and more importantly assure the women of Ireland and the people of Ireland that we are looking at how we can accelerate further delivery of refuge spaces, particularly in the areas where there is a deficit as well. The 2024 implementation plan does set out, as I say, a number of deliverables on refuge spaces by the end of the year. Active planning and engagement is underway for the delivery of 150 additional family refuge units. There's delivery of 8 new family refuge units, ensuring that 25 additional family refuge units are now under construction as well. We're commencing the publication of quarterly reports on progress towards doubling the number of refuge spaces over the lifetime of the strategy with an accessible tracking mechanism so we can all collectively monitor the progress that we want to make. The development of the first 36 refuge units in Wexford, Dundalk and Navan is currently underway, with Wexford expected to be operational by September. In addition, 17 more safe homes were delivered last year and 13 more safe homes are expected to be delivered by the end of this year. Of course, the refuge space is a major issue that we're addressing through the strategy and through the new agency, but in addition to that, so too are new laws. Minister McEntee has introduced legislation which creates new standalone offences of non-fatal strangulation and stalking, and has increased the maximum penalty for assault causing harm, one of the most commonly prosecuted domestic violence related offences, from 5 years to 10 years. We have also seen the highest level of funding provided to service providers working in this area. So we won't rest, I know you won't rest, I know the people of Ireland won't, until we do get to that zero tolerance destination when it comes to domestic, sexual and gender-based violence. I think that's something we can all be united on in this House, and we're eager to work with anybody on any side of this House to make progress in this area.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy McDonald.
Thank you, Karen Corlin. I think we can all agree that the zero tolerance culture and reality is one that we all strive for across Irish society, but I think it is important to acknowledge that we have very, very significant ground to make up, and that for far, far too long this issue did not have the kind of political priority or social priority that it so rightly deserves. The funding for services is inadequate, Taoiseach. You've cited there an increase. I want to invite you on this day where we hear of the highest level of reports to Women's Aid in their 50 years history to go back again to the drawing board and to really stress test what's necessary for these incredible services that save lives, save women and children, save their lives, that they are properly, adequately resourced. Check, see, talk to the sector, and you will find that that is not the case now. As we speak, Roscommon, Carlow, Cavan, Laois, Leitrim, Longford, Monaghan, Offaly and Sligo have no refuge provision. That's the current position, Taoiseach. I would like a commitment from you and a timeline as to when those 9 counties will have refuge provision. Can you give us a date, a timeline, please, today?
Thank you, Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Deputy McDonald. So firstly, I do agree with you that this was not a social and a national priority in all aspects of life, including in politics, until, though, people like Minister McEntee prioritised the issue. And we have now seen this become an absolute priority. We've taken very significant assignments of responsibility decisions at government to say that Minister McEntee now coordinates across all of government in relation to domestic, sexual and gender-based violence, because every department has a role to play. And I can absolutely assure you, as I know the sector would as well, the level of engagement that we have with the sector, with the service providers, quite rightly the people you identify as the people that are saving lives and doing incredible work, is intense and frequent and regular, as it should be. The level of funding has risen to service providers has risen from around 20 million a year to around 59 million a year, and I am committing on the floor of the Dáil that it will rise again. In relation to the refuge spaces, I will absolutely send a breakdown note to you on how we intend to address the issues, because I'm going to run out of time, but there is a plan to double the number of refuge places to 280. We have now tasked Kuhn specifically with publishing a quarterly tracking report in relation to how we're going to make progress on that for all to see.